I would like to recognize one of our strongest supporters and most ardent advocates, Senator Kirk Watson. Senator Watson has championed our mission, our values, and our vision before we were even a twinkle in his eyes. He motivated Travis County voters to support the creation of Central Health in 2004, and then again in 2012 to support Proposition 1. You would have thought that he was, that's what he took on, instead of him having a candidate run against him, it was Prop 1 that he was running for. And he stood by our side ever since. So it's with great deal of admiration and pride that I introduce to you my friend, Senator Kirk Watson.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Well, thank you, Rosie, and thank all of y'all, and welcome everyone tonight. It's great to see all of you here and to be part of this celebration. And I got to tell you, I couldn't be more proud of the progress that's occurred over the past year. It really is pretty phenomenal. We have some very visionary voters in Travis County, and many of you have heard me say it over and over and over again, and I will continue to say it. We live in a unique place, a place that is willing to make investment in its future and willing to follow a vision that they see will lead to a better future. I'm going to start talking a little bit about Central Health, which it seems fitting and proper to do. Central Health really hit the ground running on this project. We started it really 2 years ago. If you recall, it was in September 2 years ago that the vision of 10 goals in 10 years was laid out. And I will tell you personally, Central Health, through Trish and the board who's been introduced to you, they hit the ground running. They embraced a vision for the community that was consistent with their mission, and they believe in it. And that's one of the things that those of y'all that don't get to come in contact with the folks that work at Central Health on a day-to-day basis sometimes there's just no way you could fully appreciate. And that's not a criticism, it's just that you don't get to see them in action every day. They embrace a mission of providing better health for all of our citizens, but particularly those who otherwise would not be in a situation where they would be able to have the sort of health care that they need. They work hard at making sure that occurs. And so let's say thank you to them and give them a round of applause. Now you're going to hear in more detail, and some has already been mentioned, about some of the very specific projects that are launching, and that's key and important. But keep in mind as you listen to that, these are projects that didn't exist a year ago. They are new to our community. They didn't exist a year ago, and frankly, they wouldn't exist today but for the support of this community. Seton has been mentioned. And of course, we're joined, I see back there, by Greg Hartman, whose title I no longer can remember because I don't but he's kind of in charge of something over at University Medical Center Brackenridge. Hartman has been a key part of this, and he's joined by several people from Seton, and of course we've had great support from the President and CEO Jesus Garza and the executive chair of the board, Charles Barnett. But what a blessing as taxpayers to have in our community an organization like the Seton Healthcare family that is so creative, so resourceful, so energetic, and so generous in terms of fulfilling its mission to serve the community, including the underserved and the poor in our community. Seton is committed to building a modern 21st century teaching hospital, our safety net hospital. Think about what that would mean if the taxpayers were in a situation where they needed to do that. $245 million has been dedicated by Seton, and they're actively engaged right now in raising around $50 million through philanthropy for a $295 million modern teaching hospital that will be our safety net hospital and be one of the few resources we have that's a level 1 trauma center in our community. You can start looking for that construction crane to go up around the medical school site in the next year or so. Everything is on track, and the new hospital is projected to be open in time for the first round of medical students in 2017. And then, of course, we have the University of Texas system and the University of Texas at Austin. And we're joined here tonight, I see back there, by the former Executive Vice President and Provost, and I think he kind of likes that former part of his title, Dr. Steve Leslie. And Dr. Leslie, although he is no longer in that position as Provost, he is still dealing with special projects, and the medical school being the key special project. So let's say thank you to Dr. Leslie. And of course, we need to thank President Powers and others, and the new provost, Greg Fenves, at the University of Texas at Austin. At the University of Texas system, of course, the regents, the Chancellor Cigarroa, the former Executive Vice Chancellor Ken Chun. I'm kind of worried about all the formers once we got this passed. But we're also joined by Vice Chancellor Amy Shaw Thomas, who is here with us, who has been outstanding every step of the way, a very creative person. And next to her is Dr. Sue Cox, who, her title when we started all of this, her title was the Regional Dean for the University of Texas Southwestern System Medical School and the residency program that we have through the affiliation agreement between UT Southwestern and Seton. And she is now added to that title, and she is the Associate Dean of what we now refer to as the Dell Medical School at the University of Texas at Austin. Associate Acting Dean. Folks, I got to tell you, the system and UT campus, UT Austin, has been committed to getting that medical school up and running. And it's no coincidence that after decades of this community talking about building a medical school in Austin, it voted to do that, to make that investment. And they are moving at a rapid clip. Everything is on pace. Sometime after in the first quarter of next year, you will see dirt turning on the medical school, the medical office building, a research building, a parking garage, and a chiller, all of which the Board of Regents have agreed to fund. So that will happen, March, April, that time, February, March, April, that time frame. Quickly, let me talk, and then I'm going to introduce the doctor. One of the 10 goals in 10 years was that we would have uniquely Austin clinics. We would have a medical school, we'd have a modern teaching hospital, we'd have uniquely Austin clinics. And we talked about what that meant. You've heard a little bit about the Community Care Collaborative, and you're going to hear more about expanded services in critical areas like Rosie mentioned, women's health. In one of the areas that we talked about in the 10 goals in 10 years, behavioral health, and primary and specialty care, issues like that. Those partnerships that Rosie mentioned have been built and strengthened. It's amazing what this Community Care Collaborative is going to be. Let me just say to you, it will be something that the rest of the country looks to and studies in the way we create an integrated system of care. I see David Evans here. He can tell you that's one. ATCIC is one of the partners in the Community Care Collaborative, playing a significant role in making sure that we provide the sort of behavioral and mental health that this community deserves. You're going to hear about these projects as I introduce the doctor. And I will tell you from my perspective, it is hard to imagine. In fact, I can't imagine that we would be doing any of this had the voters not passed Proposition Number 1. It simply would not have happened.